Welcome back to Made for More. I am your host, Holly J. Moore. Today's episode is just a little bit different. I don't know if you know this, but my day job is as a lawyer. I am a divorce and custody lawyer. We do family law. I have a law firm, More Family Law Group. And every now and again, I just like to riff on some legal stuff. One could say it's my opportunity to get more legal. So at my law firm, More Family Law Group, we specialize in representing professionals and business owners, generally the breadwinner of the family. And so a lot of times that results in us representing more men than women. Although we don't turn women away, just statistically, we end up representing more men. I've been thinking about moms a lot lately. I also am a mom. I have 3 kids. And we also have a lot of cases that are going up against moms, custody cases. And that's what I want to kind of talk about today. I don't have a script. I don't have bullet points that I want to make sure to hit. I just want to talk to you guys about this issue because I think it's super important. And if you are going through a custody battle, whether you're a mom or a dad, I think you're going to find this worth listening to. So here's the thing about moms is it's very easy as a mom to have your entire identity and your self-worth and your value as a person wrapped up in raising your kids and wrapped up in your kids' identity even. And when that happens, and then you're faced with your kids being, I don't believe it's taken away from you, but this is how some people look at it. When we are faced with your kids being taken away from you 50% of the time or 30% of the time or whatever the case may be, you go into survival mode because the very core of your existence is being threatened. And do you know what we all do when we're in survival mode? Anything. We do anything to survive. And so the way this shows up in a lot of our cases is you see moms who are helicopter parenting and critiquing every single thing wrong that the other parent does. We see this show up in parental alienation. Parental alienation is one of the most subtle and gradual, most damaging things that can happen to a child. This is when the relationship with the other parent is just slowly eroded over time. And I can talk more about that either today or in a future episode. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. This can also show up in gatekeeping visitation. You know, things like, no, Johnny can't go to dad's house today because he's sick. No, Johnny can't go to dad's house today because I've planned 45 different extracurricular activities during dad's time and therefore we can't make it. Things like that. That's what we call gatekeeping. This shows up in all those different ways. And if you have been in a custody battle before, I'm sure you've seen some of these things. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So, but today I'm kind of talking more to moms. So if you're a mom and you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, shoot, you know, I kind of do some of those things. This is what I want to talk about is how you can get out of that. And dads, stay tuned. Next week, I'm going to talk about some things that relate more to you. But anyway. So as a mom, if you're thinking, yes, Holly, it is so painful to be without my kids. And yes, like my mama bear instinct kicks in and I want to really save my kids from going to dad's house because, dad sends the kid to school without a jacket and therefore I must be the savior of my kids when it comes to that. Or, dad doesn't take care of the kids as well as I do when the kids are sick and therefore I must save my kids from that. Like if that is you, my best advice for you is to honestly think about getting something for yourself going on. And while it's easy to say, yes, start a new workout routine, start going to yoga, get a hobby, go to pottery class, to me, that is not effective. Those types of things are not effective because you really need something that you're going to identify with, that you're going to go to a cocktail party and be proud to say that you do, that you're going to be proud to say this is like a huge reason for my existence. And yes, of course, if we are all completely evolved human beings, yes, just finding your identity and finding all your self-worth within yourself with completely irrelevant of all external factors. Yes, ideally that's what we should all be doing. But I'm just talking real life here because that takes so much internal work and so much time and so much just really like deep digging. I'm really talking about if you're finding yourself where you are just kind of flailing and you're in survival mode because your kids are now at their dad's half the time or a portion of the time, and you don't know what to do with yourself, and you're finding yourself sad, depressed, anxious, or whatever the case may be. That's really what I'm talking about. So yes, I hope that you and myself as well all do that internal work to be a completely whole and completely evolved and enlightened person, but that's not going to help you today. Today, I really think you should consider something like getting a full-time job, because that going to a pottery class once a week for an hour isn't going to help you when you're without your kids for an entire week. It's just not. That's the reality. While I hope you find a lot of joy, if that's something that you want to do, I hope you find joy and happiness in doing that, and you meet new people there and you're able to make new connections, and that has a lot of benefits. But what I'm really talking about is filling this gap where you feel empty and you don't know what to do with yourself when your kids aren't around you. And because of that, you're getting put into that survival mode of your brain, and you're doing behaviors that are ultimately detrimental for your kids, like the parental alienation, like the gatekeeping, like the helicopter parenting. That's really what I'm speaking to today. So my advice is like get a full-time job, because that really is going to raise your self-identity. That's really going to do a lot for your self-worth. That's going to do a lot for how you're looking at yourself. And it's also, as a practical matter, going to do a lot to actually fill your time. And it's going to take the focus off of your kids or the void of your kids when they're not physically with you. Of course, you're still in contact with them. Of course, you still love them, all of those wonderful things. But when they're not physically with you, it's going to fill this gap. If you are someone who there are no financial considerations, you don't need to get a full-time job, I would highly suggest you get like a full-time volunteer position. Again, what we're really looking for here is to truly do something that is going to raise your identity. It's going to give you purpose. It's going to give you meaning to your life, not just to like an hour once a week. You might be thinking, well, Holly, you're not the expert on this. You're not the expert on healing and, raising your self-worth and all of that. And you're totally right. If you're thinking that, you are right. I am not the expert. Where I am coming from is I've had many cases over the years where I represented dad, and mom found herself in this position where suddenly now the kids are gone for a week at a time, or even every other weekend. I mean, that still can feel very much like a void for a parent. So mom is faced with a situation where her kids are gone, a portion of the time, which she's never had before. Her whole identity and self-worth during the marriage was precisely like existed within raising the kids and being a mom and being there for her kids and volunteering in the class and doing all kid-centric things. And suddenly she finds herself not being able to do that all the time because the dynamics have changed. And through those cases, for other financial and legal considerations, which I don't want to get too far into the weeds in for today, but they have to get a job because the way the support is calculated and they have ability to earn money, like they ended up having to get a job because support was based on their earning ability, not whether they were actually earning that money or not. They had to get a job. And once they got a job, they were so much happier. And you might say, well, how do you even know that? You weren't representing them. I know that because the experts in the case that worked with them to get a job by court order and all of that, they're my experts. So the experts report back to me. And they actually reported back some really like beautiful and amazing things, even though those women hated me because they felt like I was, the cause of their downfall. I was the one that made them go back to work. But what ended up happening is when they went back to work and they had a full-time job, and suddenly they have this whole new social circle of coworkers, and they have this whole new meaning and purpose in life because they're using their skills, gifts, and talents that are not, skills, gifts, and talents that are related to raising kids. They were other skills that they had from prior to the marriage. Suddenly they're using those, they're putting those to work. They're helping other people outside of the household. And it gave them such a sense of confidence that they had not had in years. It gave them such a new sense of self-worth, and it completely like rejuvenated their identity. And ultimately, like what I heard from actually all of them, because I have multiple cases where it's this exact same pattern, what I heard from all of them through the grapevine was it was the best thing that ever happened to them. But, and that's wonderful, and I'm so happy to hear that. But the other thing that happens is their kids also now saw their moms doing things that were going towards their highest potential. Instead of just being at home and being focused on all the things that dad is doing wrong and the support that dad is not paying and, critiquing every move that dad makes in terms of his parenting, now they had a completely new focus. They had a completely increased sense of self-worth and value in the world. And that was also a super positive experience for the kids. It was also a positive experience for the ex-husband because suddenly he has to step up. Mom's at work. Mom cannot pick up the slack on all these different things. Kid forgets their lunch. Like, well, mom's at work now. Kids are either going to have to figure it out or dad's going to have to step up. Both of which are really good things, by the way. I know it's hard, but those are good things. I promise you they're good. And so it literally is so much better for the entire family unit. It's better for the kids. It's better for dad. It's better for mom. And so if you're a mom listening to this, I see you, I hear you. I know it's so scary when you're facing a divorce and you're looking at the possibility of being without your kids that you've poured your heart and soul into. But my best advice to you from seeing this pattern happen over and over and over again is really get something of your own going on. Figure out a way to increase your value in the world and do something meaningful and purposeful with your life.
A prenuptial agreement, or sometimes called a premarital agreement, is an agreement that two parties enter into before they get married that basically chooses to deviate from state law. It assigns rights and responsibilities regarding assets and debts that are acquired during the marriage. Some common misconceptions about prenups are, one, that they basically doom the marriage to failure, or that it's really planning to divorce, and neither of those things are true. But the real value of a prenup is talking about and creating rules around how the things that you acquire during the marriage are going to be characterized. A prenup can protect things like art collections, real estate portfolios, businesses, all those types of assets. The ideal timeline to get a prenup is not 2 weeks before the wedding. The final version of a prenup has to be presented to the parties 7 days before they actually sign it. So there's like a 7-day waiting period. As soon as you get engaged, you should seek a lawyer's advice and counsel on a prenup and start the process then, because the closer the prenup is signed to the wedding, the more likely that the court is going to think there was some sort of duress involved in that person signing it, and they have to prove that the prenup was signed voluntarily in order for them to be enforced. At More Family Law Group, we represent a lot of high-profile people, celebrities, professional athletes, business tycoons. If you already have a lot of assets or you think you're going to be acquiring a lot of assets during your marriage, we are the best ones to protect that for you and help you make your marriage stronger. Call More Family Law Group today.